directing live TV, and I know and explain what live TV versus live to tape.
There's a lot of terms here, and obviously people that work in this genre or whatever will know all this stuff already, but most of what I deal with is like live to tape, which would be like a multicam TV special that we are essentially we have no plan to edit. Like, we might not be going straight live to your television, but we have no plan to edit. So something that's like a performance or something that's an event that's going to happen one time, we have one chance to shoot it. And we have no plan to do edits unless there's something terrible that goes wrong. So that's sort of like the live to tape scenario. And then there's also just straight live TV, like when you guys watch the Oscars or you watch SNL. That's straight live. So that would be scripting out your shots, knowing exactly what you're going to do, having a lot of rehearsal time, and making a live show. And there's a lot of variations on this, but most of this lives in like the multicam world with specials and, there's so many subgenres in there of game shows and comedy and late night and everything that does everything from live to tape.
You directed a ton of, well, I guess you would call it live to tape, but like live shows. I think, was it World of Dance is one of your ones you did the most of?
I did a few episodes of World of Dance during season 3, I believe, which it's with NBC, and I was in NBC's Alternative Directors Program, which is kind of how I ended up with the show. So the fabulous and epic Alex Rosinski directed a lot of the episodes, at least during that time period, and I was working with him, and then I was able to do a few episodes kind of with him while he was still on set. And yeah, that was that's like a crazy one. That's like the granddaddy, because it's like 21 cameras at the time. But yeah, the process I sort of learned in working with him and working with some others was essentially scripting out, when you're shooting a performance in a 360 environment, 21 camera coverage or some variation of that, and coming into it with a rehearsal of this performance. Let's say, World of Dance is 2 minutes of dancing. It could be 2 people on stage. It could be 16 people on the stage. And so coming up with what that coverage is going to be. And so for me, the process was like watching what they'd done on the show previously. And the kind of magic hard part that you're doing, your brain, you're doing most of the directing before you actually shoot it by sitting there in a really cold, tiny room looking at an iPhone video of all things. And being like, okay, it'd be really cool if I came in with the rail can and went around this way. All right, let me mark that in the script. And so you have like a music breakdown of their 2-minute performance that might have like the beats listed out, the lyrics of the song, and you're marking your shots based on that. So you kind of have to visualize the end product in your head and be able to write that down on paper, put it into your computer, know what the camera numbers are, know where they're placed, know the timing of all the shots. Can the Steadicam get on the stage and clear out by the time you go to your close-up? You need to script that in and make sure it's going to work. And then you get to rehearse it, which is fun because it's like you just wrote all this random crap down out of your brain, and then they actually will go do it for you while you just sit there and watch. So you have your AD calling your shots in accordance with the timing of the music, and you have your massively talented camera crew out there that's done this a million times, looking at your shot list and knowing, okay, I'm supposed to be at a medium shot of the third dancer here, and I'm going to widen out to a wide shot over 4 beats because that's what you've told them to do. So they do it, and it's real messy, but you kind of just see it happen, and then you make tweaks, and you send the tweaks out to everybody, and then you run it again, and then you do it live. So that's the process, like super distilled down. And there's a lot of nuance in that. But yeah, I think the most creative part comes from sitting there by yourself and being able to visualize from a rehearsal video, how do I want this to look with the tools?
Well, I imagine the other part is, so you have, I don't even know how, like if I'm watching America's Got Talent, maybe there's 12 acts or something in a show, and you're trying to make so if you're watching dance, 12 acts of dance, you're trying to make each one feel a little different, I'm assuming.
It's a lot, but you also have like, these shows are so well staffed and so well put together, and you have so much at your disposal. So you have this huge creative team that could come in, and they're already coming in with like, okay, here's the lighting look for this group's performance. Here's a light look for that group's performance. And you're working on it together a bit, but they're coming in with like a lot of different looks for each thing. And each performance might have different screen material behind it. So like already they're going to look different even if you shot them the same way. And so you have that tool as well. But yeah, it is funny to like walk in and you're like, oh, we have like 12 different performers on the show today. So now I'm going to have to do this 12 times. It's exhausting for sure.
Yeah, I can imagine. So what is let's stick with this type of show, like this big dance show live, and then we'll move on to something that's more like a live to tape Jimmy Kimmel kind of thing. So with these big dance shows, what is the director's relationship to, say, the segment producers? Like so if America's Got Talent, I know there's a lot of packages, right? So we see we see the people talking and they give us some backstory, and now our heartstrings are pulled, then they perform. Where does the live director fit into all of that?
Sometimes, and it's different on every show, but on a lot of shows you'll have the main show director who's in the control room dealing with the studio. And then anything that is a splintered off segment type material will be with a story producer or a segment producer, and a lot of times it'll be another director that is going around just with one camera, doing those interviews and getting those OTFs or whenever they're trying to get, reality segments sometimes with those shows. And I'll just jump into Kimmel because that's a show where it's definitely set up that way. And a lot of late night shows are set up that way, where you have a main show studio director who's dealing with everything in the studio, and there's a live audience. And yeah, those shows are very much live to tape. Like, yeah, you can do an edit, but there's no time. And so they're just coming in and shooting it in front of the live audience, and it goes. In Kimmel and other shows like that, there's packages that play. There's little comedy bits that they've pre-shot. And that's the stuff I actually recently worked on with Kimmel. Because I do all sorts of different stuff. I don't just do the big multi-cam stuff, but I was doing the single camera or sometimes 2 camera shoots that we would roll in. So we might shoot those on that day, like in the morning, or sometimes we shot them a week or 2 ahead of time. And those are edited. So there's like a handful of other directors on a show like Kimmel that go off and have assignments that are, just dealing with that. And then the main show director is just sitting there all day waiting for that show to, shoot at 4 p.m. and getting all the pieces in order and making sure they have all the stuff they need for the main show. So there's just so much support in a lot of those situations. I directed a series called A Little Late with Lilly Singh that was on NBC it was on for 2 seasons, and I did the first season of it. Which was it's a late night studio show, and she would host the show. And this show was not budgeted like Jimmy Kimmel Live. It was the first season of it, and they were figuring it out. So it was just one director, which was me, dealing with, the main show studio stuff, and then also all of the sketches. If we had a guest coming in, Snoop Dogg's coming in, we got to shoot something with them backstage. It was like, all right, well, I'll come in early and do that. And then the editors will take care of it, and then I'll jump in and do the main show. So it was, there's not a hard and fast rule with every show, but yeah, ideally you want like a main show director, and then you want to have these other people that can handle some of the other stuff.
When it comes to those kinds of shows, like, Kimmel and such, obviously they have writers. How is it? I know it's different, obviously, than if you're doing a network television narrative show. But are you involved with the writers at all? Do you have any collaboration if things aren't working or if they're doing quick rewrites?
Well, it varies by situation. I know a lot of directors that have never set foot in that writer's room. They show up and they walk into the control room and the script is brought to them and they just direct whatever's on the page and they go home, and that's fine. Through doing like Lilly Singh show, I was definitely in the writer's room a lot. I would just go see what they're doing, because like, what are you guys thinking for today? Because like, what can I do to get ready? Because like, no one's down, so I need to be in here early and see what's going on. So I ended up having like a relationship with those people. But I love that, because then I can sort of, while they're still in the writing process, throw out things, whereas I'm not writing these bits, but I can sit there and go, yeah, it would be funny if we shot it this way, or this might be a good visual joke to add. So there are things that, if we collaborate, which is easy and fun, then it can elevate things. And I could throw out some ideas for how it might look, which will give them some ideas of, what the bits might be. And also it's just nice to know, like, what tools do we have available? What locations, like, how much time do we have? Can we even do that? Sometimes they come in with something we can't even shoot. And I'm like, you guys know, this isn't going to happen in 3 hours. So it's good to collaborate with those people. And then it opens up the door so they feel like they can come to me with all sorts of questions, and we're all talking back and forth, and it's going great. So that's, for me, the ideal situation. On a bigger show, though, there's like so many writers, you don't know who everyone is.
Yeah.
And you don't know who you're supposed to be talking to, and you've got one director working on this bit, you're doing this other bit, and there's a lot of stuff happening. So you can see a lot of different situations. I don't think there's any rules.
I know you also direct 3-camera live sitcom comedy type stuff with live audiences. Can you talk about, besides working with actors, obviously, what are the biggest differences when it comes to shooting live for a studio audience for, say, The Conners versus World of Dance?
I mean, they're completely different types of shows. I haven't shot actually The Conners, but like a show like that, there's so few now, but like any kind of multicam sitcom, it is, you're spending the whole week getting ready. You have a lot of rehearsal time, and you have a lot of knowledge of the script. You're not really like flying by the seat of your pants anymore. You have a plan, and there's going to be editing. And so it becomes more about performance. You're not trying to do any insane coverage. You're not doing, let's bring in pyro and screens material. And, there's not all this insane shit going on. So you're dealing with performance and making sure that these actors who have been doing this for many seasons probably are like nailing it, that they're comfortable, and that you are capturing everything. So it's different in that aspect. That's like what the focus is. And on the show day, it's just as stressful because it has to be hilarious, and that's so hard to do. But yeah, when you're doing these giant high budget 30 people dancing on stage, you have to do it in one take. It's a different vibe. It is a lot of you don't have as much rehearsal time. There's a lot more people there. There's a lot more moving pieces, and you become much more dependent on the people sitting around you to start taking pieces off of your plate. The AD are going to lean on really hard to get things done. They have so many responsibilities. Your TD has so many responsibilities. So you're definitely more part of like this machine.
Because you mentioned the technical director on a live show. What exactly is the technical director doing versus what you, the director, is doing?
On an AGT or a World of Dance show, the director has scripted out all the shots in advance, run the rehearsals, make sure everybody knows exactly what to do, practiced it, and then when it actually happens, the director is doing very little. And you can see this on YouTube videos. Like if you go watch, there's like tons of YouTube videos of like Hamish Hamilton doing stuff like Super Bowl halftime stuff. And most of what's going on when it finally happens, the director's like heavy lifting is done. And now they are the only person like with the eyes on the situation. So now they're doing like interruptibility, meaning you are like standing by to call a shot of some celebrity, somebody in the audience dancing, reacting, or something, anything that changes, you're now the person that's going to watch that. But the whole thing should unfold as you have scripted it, because the whole team knows what to do. The AD is calling the music, like calling each beat of the music and saying shot 2, shot 3, shot 4. All the shots are numbered. And the TD has a list of what cameras they're supposed to go to on those shots, but they're not, like, no one's actually looking at what's happening except the director at that point. But if you watch it in the control room, many people will be like, the director's not doing anything. It's like, yes, they shouldn't have to be there at this point. They already did it all. Everyone knows what to do.
Let's talk again about live audience stuff. So when it comes to live audience, when you're watching a show, is there a way for someone, just like the average viewer, to know if it's canned laughter or if it's an actual live audience? Are there telltale signs that you know as an insider?
I'm trying to figure out how you describe it. I mean, it's just something you can hear. I mean, if you want to know what a live audience sounds like, watch SNL. That would be like the benchmark. And, you know, that's live. And then go watch sitcoms and see what you think. Go watch like the Disney Channel sitcoms and stuff. It's fine. I mean, like when we shoot that kind of stuff, the whole crew is laughing. Like the timing of it is there. And you just didn't load in another 100 people to sit there and watch you do your job. So there's still that vibe going on. It still has that same feel. But if you get to something like SNL, which like can't really survive without a live audience, they're like part of the show. That's kind of a big thing. But yeah, I mean, COVID has changed everything. You know, all the late night shows went without audiences, most of them for some period of time. And now I think most everyone's back with a live audience. But yeah, if you watch late night shows, you'll see what that audience feels like.
I think that's where my sort of my crux of the question of can you tell there's a live audience is because I could feel like when I'm watching shows, I feel a different energy for what certain shows, and I'm like, I bet they have an actual live audience versus the ones that feel a little awkward. So you've answered my question. Like, yes, the audience does change the show and make the show feel different.
Yeah, it's funny because sometimes. Like, you don't know how a joke's going to hit these people. And sometimes it just goes completely sideways. And they laugh like way longer than anyone thought they would, to the point where you're like, oh my God. And then it makes everything just go crazy. And then you have the opposite of that, where something was supposed to be just hysterical and it doesn't land. And it's like, oh shit, I guess we're going to move on from that. Yeah. So it's not to have that like instant feedback, you know. It's something we don't have that often anymore.
What 3 skills should someone have and be able to do to direct live television?
For those type of shows, for big music shows where you have time to plan and script your shots and everything, the skills would be understanding the hell out of your coverage. I would say editing is a skill that is really important, or some equivalent of that, which would be the ability to visualize what the end product looks like. That's a really important thing. For me, I came from an editing background, so that was a really easy part of it for me. And then you need some sense of timing with these shows, with ADT and things like that, because you're going to be dealing with music and you're going to be dealing with comedy, both which involve totally different skill sets of timing. But that's something that it's hard to like learn that. Like, you sort of have to have that to know when to cut on your for comedic timing, and then to know with music, if you don't understand how a piece of music works, you're gonna have a really hard time with those shows. So I think those would be like the 3 things.
It's great. Before we wrap up, I do want to touch a little bit on now the acting in live audience sitcoms. So we'll assume 3 cameras. We'll assume live audience. I think one of the hardest things it's probably the hardest thing directors have to do in anything they do, but especially for that kind of show, is blocking. Do you have any advice on how to help directors figure out blocking? Because I'll watch like the Connors and I'm like, they never stop. They're constantly walking and moving and getting something from the fridge and sitting here and taking that. And that's just insane. So what are your thoughts on all that?
Yeah, it's tricky. And that was a big learning curve for me in doing those kinds of shows. Again, I had to sort of have a sense of understanding of the space and visualize what they're doing, because it's kind of like the death when you have a character that just like parks somewhere unless they're doing something. That's why I'm so like mad at like Seinfeld, because they always have a kitchen where they could be doing stuff, you know, and it's like, that's too easy. And so it's like, you know, trying to come up with things for a character to be doing all the time is it can be exhausting. So yeah, you absolutely have to read the scene, visualize how many people in the room, and what you want it to look like. And a lot of it is like using movement to get them all over the place. And then when they stop, it's like an emphasis on whatever's happening. Like, now we're getting to the crux of the conversation. So using those moments like judiciously is like a key thing. But I would if you're having trouble with blocking, practice it with like your random family members. Make them do a scene, like freaking block it in your living room or your kitchen or your dining room or whatever, and get the hang of it. And all of a sudden, you start picking up on when people should be entering and leaving the room and what, where they should be standing so you can see them with the camera. Because it really sucks to do it wrong on set. It really sucks to be figuring it out when the actors are there because they hate that. And they will like bulldoze you if you don't know what you're doing. Because the actors will show up and go, where do I stand? Am I walking here to here? What am I doing? They get pushy, some of them. So you should know what you want them to do. And have a sense of what you're doing. Draw a freaking map on your set drawings. Show beats A, B, and C for this character as they move through the scene and draw where your cameras are. Just figure it out. Then go run the rehearsal and it's going to suck. Parts of it will be messed up and then you'll make corrections. But start with something. Don't just walk in there and be like, I don't know. Let's try it. If the director does not push where they're going to stand, the actors will start doing things. And then you'll be in a reactionary position with your coverage, which can be bad. So it should be a dialogue. I mean, you should come into the scene with an idea of what you want and have a reason for it, not just because I want you to look busy or whatever. Like there's a motivation for what the character's doing. And you should be thinking about like, that character wouldn't come in and just flop down on the couch. They've had a long day. They're not going to walk around and do all this stuff there. And that's in character for them. And the actor should be in a position where they feel like they can push back if they don't agree with something, like, oh, I think my character would do this instead, and then have a conversation about it. But I just think it really helps to come in knowing that scene really well and having an idea for where you want everyone to stand. And the more people, the more crazy it gets. You get into some of these shows with a big cast and you're like, oh my God, where are we going to put all the cameras? And so it gets tricky with people with a lot of scenes when there's a lot of people.
I was going to say too, I want to really emphasize to the directors who are listening that you mentioned having motivation for the character and knowing that coming in, because I feel like whether you're working with green actors who don't understand that directing them is actually helping them, or pros who maybe are set in their ways, for you to have the answer of, well, I need you to walk here because, and it's character motivated. Or if it's a professional, you can even say, I need you to walk here because I need the camera to catch you. The actors are good with that if they're pros. But the point is knowing that motivation. I want to just really push that home to those listeners.
Yeah.
Is there anything that you can think of that you're like, oh, I wish I had known this when I first started directing live? Where do you begin?
I don't know. I think, it's an insane kind of undertaking to do. And I just think I came through post, and so jumping over the production side was a really big record scratch for me. It was like, whoa. I don't think there's anything I wish I'd known. I think we all know what it is and how insane it is. I think it's a bit thankless. I think you could do a really, really amazing job on something that's in the moment, that you only get one shot to do and you can nail it, and you'll still get screamed at by somebody who just saw it a different way than you and is upset about something. And you're just like, oh my God. So you really have to find your own success with it, make your own benchmark. I know that looked great. I know I nailed it, and not get too swallowed up in a lot of personalities that you meet, because there's just a lot of big personalities on these shows. And I think, I don't think that should, turn anyone off from doing it, but it's just something to expect. And I think you have to treat your team really well around you, because you lean so hard on these people and they become your ride or dies. And I think I wish more people treated them really well. And but I think it's really fun. I think it's a really fun way to have a job.
This is not an easy subject to talk about because a lot of it is visual. So I appreciate that you've come here to try to help enlighten us. And so like that. Thank you.